Hello everyone. If you love touching animal stories and want to follow the inspiring journey of these adorable friends, don't forget to hit the subscribe button now so you won't miss any of our videos. Now, let's dive into today's emotional story. The sun dipped low over the plains of Nebraska, casting a golden hue across the endless stretch of dry grass and weather-worn fences. It had been nearly 9 years since Caleb Mercer had last stepped foot on his family's land. The worn tires of his truck crunched over gravel as he pulled into the long-abandoned driveway. The house, once his safe haven, looked tired. Paint peeling, porch sagging, silence pressing in from every direction. Caleb stepped out of the truck, stiff from the drive and aching from more than just physical pain. At 34, he bore the weight of 2 lifetimes. The innocent one before he left for Afghanistan and the hardened one after. Years of deployment had left scars on his back and deeper ones on his mind. Diagnosed with PTSD and chronic spinal damage, Caleb's military career had ended not in glory, but in the quiet resignation of a man who had given everything and returned with fragments. There was one thing, or rather someone, he hadn't stopped thinking about during those long nights under foreign skies. Ace. Ace was more than just a dog. He was a Belgian Malinois trained for war, a companion Caleb had trusted with his life. They'd faced firefights, raids, and sleepless patrols together. More than once, Ace had saved him, once dragging his unconscious body through dirt and shrapnel after an IED blast. They were a team, a brotherhood. When Caleb was discharged, he'd been told Ace would be reassigned temporarily, but was being considered for retirement soon. He waited for a call that never came. For months, Caleb had tried to track Ace's whereabouts. Emails to handlers, calls to base command, messages left unanswered. Eventually, a former contact slipped him a name, a private training facility in Kansas known for rehabbing retired K-9s. That was all Caleb needed. Now, standing on the cracked porch of that very facility, if one could call it that, Caleb felt dread in his gut. The gates had been left open, the air stale, the silence eerie. He stepped through tall grass, heart pounding, eyes scanning the overgrown grounds. Then he heard it, a faint clink of metal. Behind a rusted shipping container, half buried in vines, something moved. Caleb rounded the corner and stopped in his tracks. A dog lay curled on the dirt, ribs visible, fur matted with grime. Flies swarmed around sores on its legs. A thick chain tethered the animal to a pole. Caleb's voice broke in a whisper. Ace. No response. Just shallow breathing. He fell to his knees. It's me, buddy. It's Caleb. Still nothing. Then, softly, he muttered the German command they'd practiced hundreds of times. Platz. The dog's ears twitched. Slowly, painfully, the animal lifted its head. Cloudy amber eyes locked with Caleb's. And then, a faint, broken wag of the tail. Caleb's chest cracked open. Tears ran down his dust-streaked face as he scooped the fragile body into his arms. I've got you now. I'm not leaving without you. The waiting room at the rural veterinary clinic was cold. Fluorescent lights flickered above cracked linoleum tiles, and the scent of antiseptic hung in the air. Caleb sat hunched forward, elbows on knees, eyes fixed on the steel table in front of him, where Ace lay motionless under a thin blanket. The vet, Dr. Evelyn Moreno, had seen many cases of neglect in her 3 decades of practice, but as she examined Ace, her voice grew tight. He's severely underweight, malnourished, dehydrated. There are signs of prolonged confinement, pressure sores, muscle atrophy. She paused and ran her fingers gently along old scars near his ribs. Some of these, they look intentional. Caleb clenched his jaw, fists curling. You mean someone hurt him? On purpose? I'm afraid so. Her voice was low. This dog has been through hell. Ace didn't whimper. He didn't even look away. He just stared at Caleb, those amber eyes no longer blank, but searching. Something in them had begun to come alive again. Faint, flickering, but there. Caleb nodded slowly. Then we'll get him out of it. He refused to leave Ace alone that night. He slept in the truck with him, Wrapped in blankets under the soft hum of the truck's heater, Ace's head resting in his lap. It was the first time Caleb had slept through the night in months. The next morning, he posted a photo. Ace lying beside that rusted container, bones visible beneath his fur. Caleb typed only a few words beneath it. "He fought beside me. He saved my life. And this is how they left him." He closed the laptop, not expecting much. But within hours, his phone began buzzing. Shares turned into thousands. Messages poured in from fellow Marines, veterans, dog handlers. Rage, heartbreak, disbelief. People were furious. Animal advocacy groups demanded an investigation. News outlets requested interviews. Celebrities retweeted Ace's photo with words like hero and unforgivable. But Caleb didn't care about the noise. All that mattered was Ace. He transformed the guest room in his old farmhouse into a recovery space. Clean bedding, heating pads, bowls of hand-cooked meals. Every few hours, he gently fed Ace tiny portions, just enough to rebuild his strength. He cleaned the wounds, applied medication, whispered encouragement. Some nights, he'd sit on the floor beside Ace, reading aloud. Sometimes old war journals. Sometimes nothing at all. Just his voice filling the silence. And slowly, Ace began to respond. First, a blink. Then a tail wag. Then one shaky step toward the door. By the end of the first month, Ace stood on his own. By the second, he followed Caleb across the house, still limping but always close. Each step forward, however small, felt like victory. Ace was healing, but so was Caleb. Spring arrived gently, casting soft light over the quiet fields of Caleb's farmhouse. The grass turned green again, and the birds returned to the trees. But the biggest change had happened inside the small house, where Ace was no longer a ghost of a soldier. He had regained weight. His coat had grown thick and glossy again, and the hollow look in his eyes had faded. He still bore the scars, inside and out, but something had shifted. His ears perked at familiar sounds, and he no longer flinched at every sudden movement. He moved with more confidence now, his step steady, his loyalty unwavering. Caleb and Ace started going on short walks down the gravel path near the lake. They didn't go far, but it was enough. Caleb found himself talking to Ace the way he hadn't spoken to anyone in years. About war, about pain, about memories he'd buried deep because Ace understood. He didn't judge. He just walked beside him every single step. One Saturday afternoon, Caleb stopped at the local convenience store in town to pick up coffee and supplies. He parked under an old oak tree, giving Ace a pat on the head. "Back in 5, buddy," he said. Ace watched Caleb walk away, calm and alert. But everything changed in seconds. Inside the store, a man in a dark hoodie entered after Caleb, pacing nervously. No one paid much attention until a scream shattered the silence. Caleb turned sharply. The man had pulled a gun, shouting at everyone to hit the ground. In his panic, he grabbed a little girl by the arm and dragged her toward the counter, pressing the weapon to her head. Caleb's heart dropped. Time slowed. He tried to think, but before he could move, something outside stirred. Ace had heard it. The passenger side door was unlocked. With a soft click of the handle, Ace pushed it open with his nose, leapt down, and sprinted across the pavement. No barking, no noise, just years of training and instinct. He slipped inside the store, weaving through shelves and knocked over displays. In a blur of motion, Ace launched himself from behind the shelves. His jaws locked onto the gunman's arm just as the man raised the weapon. The pistol clattered to the ground. The man shrieked, losing his grip on the girl as he fell. Ace didn't maul, he didn't overreact. It was a perfect takedown. The girl scrambled into Caleb's arms, sobbing. He held her tight, heart pounding. By the time the police arrived, Ace was sitting calmly beside the subdued attacker, tail gently thumping the floor. As if asking Caleb, "Did I do good?" Security footage showed the moment. A blur of fur, a flash of courage. Within hours, news spread like wildfire. Veteran's dog saves child during attempted robbery. The headlines read, TV crews showed up at Caleb's house. National outlets picked up the story. Ace was no longer just a forgotten soldier, he was a hero. Standing outside his home, cameras pointed at him. Caleb placed a steady hand on Ace's back. "He never forgot who he was," Caleb said softly. "He was born to protect, and he still chooses to." The weeks that followed were unlike anything Caleb had ever imagined. His quiet home became the center of a national conversation, not just about Ace, but about the fate of all retired military dogs who had been left behind, abandoned after giving everything. Messages poured in. Veterans, families, animal rights advocates, people from every walk of life, reached out. Some shared stories of their own war dogs who had vanished after service. Others offered help, donations, even medical care. Caleb's small house, once a place of silence and solitude, now hummed with purpose. One morning, a letter arrived in the mail, an embossed envelope bearing the insignia of the Department of Defense. Inside was an invitation. Caleb had been asked to speak at the National War Dog Memorial Ceremony in Washington, D.C. For the first time in history, a section of the memorial would be dedicated to forgotten and abandoned military working dogs. Ace's story had become the heart of the movement. On a crisp autumn day, under a sky of clear blue and gold leaves, Caleb stood on a wide stage. Rows of chairs stretched before him, veterans in uniform, families holding flags, children with wide, curious eyes. At his feet lay Ace, wearing a custom vest adorned with medals. Some earned, some honorary, all well-deserved. Caleb looked down at him, then out at the crowd. "I was told war would change me," Caleb began, his voice low but steady. "And it did, but not in the way I expected. I came home carrying ghosts. I thought I was alone, until I realized Ace was carrying them too." He paused, eyes shining. He never spoke. He didn't need to. Every scar on his body told a story, of loyalty, of pain, of survival. War didn't break him. We did, when we left him behind, when we forgot him. But love brought him back. The crowd was silent. Some wiped away tears. Others simply nodded, finally understanding something that had remained unspoken for too long. "And now," Caleb said, his voice firm, "it's our turn to do better." In the months that followed, Caleb turned those words into action. With the help of supporters, animal rights groups, and veterans across the country, he founded a nonprofit called Ace's Second Chance. Its mission was clear: to find and rehabilitate forgotten war dogs, and to pair them with veterans who needed healing just as much. One by one, they found them, dogs wasting away in shelters, locked in cages, discarded by private contractors. Caleb and his team rescued them, cared for them, and gave them homes. The organization also offered therapy programs, bringing together warriors, both human and canine, who understood each other's pain without words. Ace became the face of the mission. His story became a symbol of second chances, of the deep, silent bond forged in fire and rebuilt in love. Years passed. One morning, as dawn broke gently across the lake behind Caleb's home, he sat beside Ace. Now old, his muzzle graying, his movements slow, but his eyes, they still held that familiar spark. Beside him sat a young German shepherd named Jasper, recently rescued from a failed training facility. Nervous, curious, he leaned slightly into Ace's side, watching and learning. Caleb smiled. "He'll show you the way," he whispered to Jasper, patting Ace gently, "just like he showed me." Ace lifted his head one last time and rested it on Caleb's knee, breathing slow and steady. In that moment, there was no war, no pain, no memory of cages or chains. Only peace, only love, only legacy. The story of Caleb and Ace is more than just a tale of reunion between a soldier and his war dog. It is a powerful reminder of the silent sacrifices made by those who serve, both human and canine. Ace wasn't just a tool of war. He was a loyal soul, a warrior who bled, suffered, and saved lives, only to be forgotten when the battle ended. Through Caleb's relentless search, Their reunion not only reignited a bond forged in combat, but also shone a spotlight on the forgotten heroes who have no voice of their own. This story teaches us that true loyalty never fades, even through pain, neglect, and time. It urges us to reflect on how we treat those who have served with unwavering devotion. Healing doesn't always come in grand gestures. It often comes through patience, compassion, and the quiet presence of someone who simply refuses to give up. In the end, The Forgotten Warrior is a tribute to love, resilience, and second chances. It reminds us that even when the world turns away, one act of kindness can ignite change. And sometimes the ones we save are the ones who end up saving us.